the definition of filth. Among the various conditions of prayer, but because it has many details, has its own chapter, so it's a condition of prayer, and we've talked about the conditions of prayer. So why does this have its own chapter if it's a condition among the other conditions? Because it has a lot of details. Is to be clear of unexcused najis filth. As for the excused najis filth, it's not a condition to remove it for the validity of your prayer. Therefore, to ensure the prayer's validity, one needs to know how to identify the types of filth and how to clean them. The word is najas, which means filth or filthy. So, najas, if it means filth, that means it's the type of thing that it is. If it means filthy, then it's a description. You can describe something with this form of the word, like Hasan. If something is Hasan, that's a description. So najas can be a description. That means filthy. Or najas is the type of thing it is. Like hajar is a stone. It's not a description. It's a thing that it is. Or najis with a kasra, najis, then it's a description. It means filthy. Or najasa, then that's the type of thing it is, filth, which linguistically is something repulsive, mustaqdar. So the linguistic meaning of najas is mustaqdar or qadar, repulsive, nasty. The translators called it by this hyphenated compound word, najis filth. And that's how a lot of our brothers and sisters got used to saying it, because that's how they learned it. Keeping the Arabic word najas and attaching to it its translation, which is filth. Why? Likely because they were afraid that in merely translating it as filth, there would be some ambiguity about what is religiously intended. They didn't want to just call it filth and then maybe it's not clear. So they kept the Arabic word and said najas filth. It has been technically defined by some as a substance whose type prevents the validity of prayer. Thus, they defined it by considering its effect on the prayer. However, this, i.e., invalidating prayer, is only true if the filth is not excused, as will come soon. That's why some of them said, filth is the substance that invalidates the prayer when there's no facility. They added something. When there's no facility, that means if it's excused filth, then the prayer is not invalidated. Or if the circumstance allows for the filth to be left, even though originally it might not be an excused filth, but maybe you have no water to clear yourself and you need to pray. But inshallah, we'll see another definition of filth soon. What is contrary to filth is the pure thing, taahir. This includes all living things except for what will be mentioned. That's the dog and the pig, and whatever is a hybrid of those two. Everything that's alive while it's alive, not while it's dead. Every living thing while it's alive is pure, not filthy, except for the dog and the pig and any hybrid from those animals. Anything mixed with a dog, anything mixed with a pig. And the inanimate things, like rocks and plants, those are all pure, not filthy, except what will be mentioned, like blood and feces and urine and some other things we'll talk about. The difference between the najas and the mutanajjis. After that, know the difference between what is itself a filthy material and what is itself a pure material but contaminated by filth. So a thing that is filthy in and of itself and a thing that is pure in and of itself but might be contaminated by najasa. So some filth fell upon it, or it fell in najasa. So now the thing that by itself is pure is contaminated. The najas is the filth itself, such as feces, and thus is sometimes called najasul ayn, filthy in itself. Except for the likes of wine and animal skins, such material cannot be purified. Rather, it can be removed. Izala. Izala means removal. For example, there is no way to turn a piece of feces into pure material. Even using it for fuel or fertilizer does not change the fact that it is filth. As for wine and animal skins, they can be purified not by mere removal, but by transformation. Wine is not purified by removal because removing it doesn't make it not wine anymore. Animal skins are not purified by removal because removing it doesn't make it not filthy anymore. Just like feces. Feces is filthy. If you remove the feces from something, that doesn't make the feces pure. So, wine, which is filthy, and animal skins, when that animal is filthy in death, a dead animal that's filthy, we'll talk about it inshallah. These two filths, you have to transform them into something taahir. Wine can be transformed into vinegar, and animal skins can be tanned. Until then, they must be removed for prayer. And we talked about that last week. If you have any question, go ahead and ask. If a thing is pure in and of itself, like a cloth, stone, or stick, but is contaminated by filth, it is called najis. That means it's contaminated or filthy by something. Such a thing can be purified by removal of the filth. But the details of that purification depend on the type of filth. Is it dog filth or pig filth? Is it the urine of a baby boy? Is it something else? So the details of that removal depend on the type of filth. And we'll come to talk about that inshallah. Benefit. Detailed definition of filth. It is said that filth is every substance that, not due to repulsiveness, nobility, or harm to the body or mind, is absolutely forbidden to be consumed under normal circumstances, while easily distinguishable. Every substance that, not due to repulsiveness, nobility, or harm to the body or mind, is absolutely forbidden to be consumed under normal circumstances while easily distinguishable. Now, when you read that definition as it is, it might sound like a bunch of words. It might sound to some people like jumbo. When you come across something like that, then you need to commit it to memory. As you memorize it, and it's soaking into your heart and you're memorizing it, it will come clear to you. The two best ways to understand the religious knowledge is to teach it and to memorize it. According to this, filth is determined by the prohibition of eating it. Every substance that, not due to its repulsiveness, nobility, or harm to the body or mind, is absolutely forbidden to be consumed under normal circumstances while easily distinguishable. So according to this, what is the determining factor to say that it's najas? The prohibition of eating it, not its effect on the prayer. This definition didn't label filth by its effect on the prayer. To understand this definition, one must understand that there are 4 reasons for something to be forbidden to be consumed. There are 4 reasons that it's haram for you to eat something. 1, something may be disgusting and thus forbidden to eat. The disgusting thing is that from which the self is naturally averse. That means just naturally you're repelled by it. If someone brings you a garbage can with flies It tells you eat from this. Don't you find that's naturally repulsive? So the disgusting thing is that from which the self is naturally averse. This includes semen, a wad of saliva that exited the mouth. When we say a wad of saliva, that means a tangible amount. So not some saliva if you licked your lips and now your lips are moist, or you put a spoon in your mouth and then you drew the spoon out of your mouth and there's some moisture on that spoon. No, we're talking about a tangible amount. That means a collectible amount of saliva. So a wad of saliva that exited the mouth. For example, you might see little kids, they play with their saliva, they bring it up and down. Sometimes they bring it in their mouth and out, in and out. So once it comes out of the mouth in a collectible amount, then swallowing it after that is haram. So if you catch your kid doing that, stop him, because he might swallow it after that. He needs to spit it out now. Mucus, that means snot, the stuff that drips down from your head. And rotten food. Those are just some examples. So some of those shows they do, like Fear Factor or something like that. I don't know if that stuff is still on the air, but don't they make those people eat very disgusting things? That's haram, just by virtue of its repulsiveness. 2, a material may have nobility, i.e., honor, such as a dead Muslim, so it is forbidden to be eaten. Since the dead blasphemer is a human like the dead Muslim, it is also forbidden to consume him. Eating human flesh is only permissible if it is the only thing available to preserve one's life. Upon that, it can only be eaten raw, i.e., it is forbidden to cook it in any way whatsoever. Boiling, frying, baking, sitting it in the sun, doesn't matter. A thing may be harmful to the body or mind and thus forbidden to consume. Examples are such as poison and drugs and stones, and to be more specific, when we say drugs, like opium, that's the example Sheikh usually gives specifically. Afyun. Opium and stones. If you eat a rock, that will likely harm you. You cannot do that. That's haram. Some of these might be consumed as medicine if prescribed by a trustworthy doctor in small amounts. Under the prescription of a trustworthy Muslim doctor, not a kafir doctor, then it might be permissible sometimes. The 4th is that it is filthy. The 4th reason for something to be haram to eat it is that it is filthy. All wet things that exit the private parts, like urine, feces, and the fluid of arousal, are filthy. Except ejaculated fluid, that's not filthy, but it's still disgusting. So you can't consume any of that. Also, whatever transformed in the stomach, accumulated in the body, and then exits is filthy, like vomit, flowing blood, and pus. Yani, whatever transformed in the stomach, you swallowed it, for example, and then it, inside of your stomach, transformed, and your body is going to metabolize that. That means absorb it into the body and transform it. So if it transforms and then accumulates, that means collects in the body, like vomit. So if you vomit, isn't it that when someone vomits, it's pretty much an accumulation of stuff, like a bunch of stuff comes out? That's because it accumulated. Or if a person defecates, isn't it usually like a bunch of stuff comes out? Or urinates? That's because it accumulates in the body. So whatever transformed in the stomach accumulated in the body and then exits after that, like vomit or flowing blood or pus, that's filthy. However, what does not collect, it doesn't accumulate, and instead it secretes. That means it seeps out, like through the pores, through whatever way, like tears, saliva, and sweat, then it is not filthy. Also excluded are other exceptions like eggs and milk and honey. That's an exclusion. because that is something that transformed in the stomach and then accumulated in the body, the eggs, the milk, and the honey. But these are excused by religious evidence and other things also. As for what does not transform in the stomach, meaning that it came out the way it went in, you swallowed it, and when it came out just like the way you put it in. It is still pure in itself, but it is contaminated, and it needs to be purified. If you swallowed a coin, for example, or you swallowed a key, let's say, and then the key came out just the way you put it in, the key itself is still pure because it didn't change. But you'll just have to rinse it off. For this reason, we say that the unslaughtered meat is filthy because Allah made it forbidden to be eaten. You might say to someone, you can't eat that meat, it's najas. And he says, what do you mean it's najas? What's your proof that it's najas? The proof that the haram meat is najas is that Allah made it forbidden to be eaten. When Allah said, حرمت عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير. Forbidden upon you is the dead meat, the flowing blood, and the swine meat or pig meat. So you say to that person, the proof that this meat is najas is that Allah said, حرمت عليكم الميتة. Forbidden for you to eat is the dead meat. Then they'll say, well, I'm still listening. I didn't hear anything about najas. So then you'd have to tell him, well, the proof that it's najas is that it's haram to eat it. And he'll say, well, why? Where'd you get that from? So you have to tell him, well, didn't you learn? There are 4 reasons why it's haram to eat something. So by process of elimination, you can't eat something when it's harmful. You can't eat something when it's disgusting. You can't eat something if it has nobility. And you can't eat something if it's najas. So that prohibition of eating it is not for any of the other mentioned 3 reasons. It's not haram to eat that meat because it's noble, or because it's harmful, or because it's disgusting. So what remains is that it is filthy. In fact, the rule is all dead animals are filthy, but the human fish and locust, and the human is not an animal, by the way. We could fix that and say all the dead bodies. All the dead bodies are filthy, but the human, fish, and locust, the kuffar think that they're animals. They're the ones who believe that they are animals, but we know that we are not animals, we are humans. As for slaughtered edible animals, the religious law deemed their valid slaughter a means for their dead bodies to maintain the purity that they had while alive so that they can be eaten. Meaning, you take an animal that is edible religiously. You know that while it's alive, it's pure, it's not filthy. If you slaughter it properly, that religious slaughter, that religiously recognized killing, will maintain the animal's purity, the body's purity, the purity of that animal's body. So when it dies, it will stay pure, and then you can eat it. But if it dies without a religiously recognized slaughter, it will become filthy, and you will not be allowed to eat it. At that point, the only thing you can get off of that dead body is its skin. You can tan the skin. It is clear then that religiously, filth does not have to be revolting. And a thing being revolting does not mean it is filthy. Although that is the linguistic meaning of najas, to be revolting. Rather, one may not be repelled by his own blood or urine. So it's not a condition that filth is revolting. Your own blood is not necessarily revolting to you. And thus one might suck the blood of his finger, right? Which is a sin. It's haram because it's najas. You cannot do that. But why would a person do that? Because he doesn't find it disgusting. So that if his own urine spilled on himself, he might say, oh man, that's messed up. I'll wash it off later, for example. But if somebody else's urine fell on him, he'd be like, oh my God, we going crazy, and he's got to get it off of himself. In fact, filth may even be appealing. And that is why people love to eat the forbidden meat. They like how it smells, they like how it looks, they like how it tastes. So it's not revolting, although it is filthy. It is also not a condition that filth be harmful. Do you not see that people get nutrition from this meat? Even the pig meat. They eat it and they get energy. Yes, it is sinful and thereby inwardly harmful, religiously or spiritually harmful, but it is not toxic, physically toxic, or otherwise obviously harmful, like poison or drugs. As for normal circumstances and being easily distinguishable, filth may be eaten in emergency situations or if it cannot be distinguished. What is that, normal circumstances and easily distinguishable? Remember the definition we just read? Every substance that, not due to repulsiveness, nobility, or harm to the body or mind, is absolutely forbidden to be consumed under normal circumstances while easily distinguishable. So now we want to cover these last two. Under normal circumstances while easily distinguishable. As for normal circumstances and being easily distinguishable, filth may be eaten in emergency situations or if it cannot be distinguished. Under normal circumstances, i.e. normal living conditions, it is absolutely forbidden to consume filth. Under normal living conditions, like most of us are living. Included under absolutely is a small amount and a large amount. So it's not that you say, it's only a little bit, it's okay. Absolutely haram. Emergency situations are like times of famine or war or being stranded in the desert. Now that's not normal circumstances or normal living conditions. During such times, one may only find vermin or dead animals or plants that people do not usually eat. In such cases, in which one cannot find something pure, he may eat of filth only what sustains his life. Meaning he can't get full, he can just eat what makes him stay alive, and then he has to stop. And some said that one can eat his fill, that it's permissible for him to eat his fill. As for being easily distinguishable, this excludes from being a sin consuming the likes of a dead worm in fruit or cheese when it is not easily detected. It is not obligatory to search through the fruit and cheese to ensure that there are no dead worms, so eating that because of not seeing it is not a sin. Any question? You said earlier, you mentioned that if someone has to eat a dead human to stay alive, they cannot cook it. Can they salt and dehydrate it? I haven't learned about that. Question, is a horse considered noble? So no, it's not considered noble in this context. Because if it was noble in this context, it wouldn't have been permissible to slaughter it and eat it in the first place.